Okay, welcome everybody to today's F5 replacement webinar. And let me clear these out and we'll get started. So today's agenda, we're going to spend a little bit of time going over the state of app delivery and why the time is right for changes. The majority of you, you're on this webinar, you're probably familiar with load balancing and application delivery. But it's worth taking a look at, going back and taking a look at a little bit of the evolution and what happened and why that's leading into today where actually things are changing and it is the right time to perhaps look for some alternatives to the status quo or some of the solutions you may have been using. Once we take a look at that, then there are some of you I've seen that register for this webinar that I've seen before that are familiar with Array, but there's also some new names. You want to build an awareness, just let you know a little bit about Array Networks if you haven't heard of us before, a little bit about our company as well as our products, the ADC product primarily, but also some of our other products as well as some of our solutions. And then what I thought was probably the best way to get you started and to get you started looking at Array as potentially an alternative is to actually go ahead and look at the product itself and do a bit of a live demo and go over some of the features and some of the things that we think actually make it a simpler product and a compelling alternative to F5, which is a powerful product, but at times can also be a very complex product. So I want to take some time and have one of our SEs actually guide you through a quick demo and show you a few things. From there, there are a few key solutions that I think are perhaps fairly compelling and fairly unique to Array. So I'll spend a little bit of time and talk about some of those solutions and some of the advantages of Array, and then toward the end get into the actual F5 replacement program offer. Perhaps that's the reason a lot of you joined the webinar today is that we do have very compelling incentive programs and offers for those that are actually interested in looking at Array as an alternative to F5. So a bit of housekeeping before we dig in. My name is Paul Anderson. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing for Array Networks. I'll be, as I mentioned, leading the bulk of today's call before and after the demo. Also on the call with me today is Ed Kuiper, Senior Sales Engineer here at Array Networks. And as I mentioned, he'll be leading the demo portion of today's webinar, as well as, of course, being on the call toward the end. We'll have a Q&A session. And, if there are some, questions that I can answer, I'll field those. But a lot of times there are some more technical questions that come up or some questions that are specific to your use case or your deployment, and Ed will be on to hopefully be able to answer those questions for you. So speaking of those questions, as you go along, use either the Q&A window that you see in the WebEx platform. If you want to use the chat window, just type those questions in as we go along, and as we get to the end, we'll be fielding those questions. And while we field those questions at the end, that'll give another opportunity to, if you haven't already entered in your questions, it'll give an opportunity to enter in your questions as we field some of the ones that are already in the window. So with that, let's get going. This is just real basic background. So what is the application delivery controller, or the advanced load balancer, or the traffic management appliance? Primarily, it started out, you can see here, you have the users on one end, you got the data center and the servers and the applications on the other side of that connection. And it really started out, the product, you put that product in front of your servers, directly in front of your servers, directly in front of your applications as a load balancer. Distribute the requests, provide that high availability. If something happens to one service, one server, obviously you can distribute that to another server and, prevent disruptions to the user experience for your users. As applications scale, and particularly now you have, cloud-based applications that need to scale in order to service not just thousands of users, but maybe tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of users. The application delivery controller plays a critical role in scaling the application, making it easy to seamlessly add new compute resources behind the load balancer without disrupting anything, being able to scale up and seamlessly support additional users. From there, one of the things that was part of the evolution, and we'll touch on this more, but was the introduction of the things that can actually improve not just the performance of the applications, but also the efficiency of the server. You begin to offload things to the ADC, such as SSL server runs better, applications perform better. Layer on caching, layer on compression, layer on some traffic shaping, layer on other techniques, and it really becomes a device that can accelerate the performance of the application itself, provide that better user experience. Strategic point of control. Many times an application is written and it works well in that testing and in that dev environment, but you roll it out into the big bad world, trying to deliver an application from many data centers to many users that are all over. Sometimes you need to make some adjustments to the behavior of that application, and the application delivery controller, some of the scripting capabilities, some of the techniques that we have available is giving you that ability to adapt and build on the functionality of the application such that it is able to be delivered out to all of your users with that proper user experience. And then finally, security. Sitting in front of the servers, sitting in front of the applications, it terminates all those connections. So the connections do not go directly to the application, do not go directly to the server. They're terminated on the application delivery controller appliance. A lot of times those are encrypted connections. We're de-encrypting those, terminating those, and then applying web application security, things of that nature to provide a first line of defense before moving on to, hopefully getting rid of a lot of the malicious connections before they ever have a chance to touch the server or the application. So probably many are familiar with these general attributes of the ADC, but that's the nature of the product that we're talking about today. And what has been that evolution? I kind of highlighted this already, but starting out as that load balancer, providing those basic availability, scalability, predictability, distributing those loads, monitoring the health of the servers, the ability to easily add servers. And then as you move through the evolution, you start to get the functional integration I talked about, layering on performance, security, server efficiency through some of those acceleration techniques, including SSL, compression, caching, traffic shaping, and so on. And then really that transition from the load balancer or more advanced load balancer to what we now generally refer to as an application delivery controller really came with the application awareness, where we started to reach out to a lot of the ISV vendors, Microsoft, SAPs, Oracle, IBM, lots of different, and really working with those applications, understanding how they behave and what those settings need to be like on the ADC in order to provide optimal performance for those applications. So this application awareness came in along with templates, deployment guides, things like this to really get you, if you're running one of these applications and not a homegrown application, to really get you to where you need to go with that application awareness. And then finally, as we move into today, or almost today, we're moving into cloud and new data center, where things are really going the direction of software, virtual options, orchestration, IPv6, higher levels of SSL encryption, things of that nature. So beginning to move a little bit away from hardware and more into the agility, or bringing some of these network functions into that architecture, or that paradigm that the cloud is bringing, on demand, orchestrated, automated, mobile, portable, things of that nature, and then that's what people are looking to now. So that really leads us into, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but things are beginning to change a little bit. Something like an F5 might be a very powerful product, but the way people are looking at things now is I might not need that big, powerful, complex solution at every point in my network. Maybe toward the edge I need something that's more powerful, more scalable. Maybe I need hardware to do, terminate connections in a scalable way, or offload things like SSL, or provide a first line of defense. But I'm not going to try to do everything on that product. I'm going to deploy more nimble solutions close to the application. And so things are changing a little bit. So this is a little bit of the background. The ADCs have become increasingly powerful. But in one example, for example, F5, it might have kind of gone too far. It might be becoming too costly and too complex. And one of the examples that I use from that is just out there working with our partners and working with some potential customers. So we had a SaaS customer that we were working with, and the service that they were standing up, that service, they were buying all the parts, all the components they need to stand up that service. And the core component of that service, it was a security service offering. The core components were next-gen firewalls, but also the compute, the servers, and the storage that's running the applications. Those are the critical elements to the overall solution. The parts that actually generate revenue for them. However, just like any application, any service, you need to have some supporting components. For instance, the 10 gig switches that are supporting components, the application delivery controller, the load balancers, another supporting component. And one of the things we found on the overall, kind of bill of goods for this thing was that the servers and storage was about, $250,000. The next-gen firewalls, $130,000. The switches, about $60,000. And then there was a line item for the load balancers that needed to support this thing, and it was including the services and everything else that was included in the quote. It was about $500,000. So you have a supporting element here that is going to cost this customer potentially more than all the rest of the components, including the core components that they really use to drive and generate revenue. So this was what created the opportunity, working with a partner where they said, we need to bring these costs down, bring the price of that element in line so that we can invest more in the core application and solution elements that can actually generate revenue for us. So this is what we're seeing. This is not the only example we're seeing out there, but it is something that we're seeing more and more often, and why there are people that are looking now for alternatives to F5. Now, that's a cost thing. It's not always cost. F5 might be misaligned with your needs or your requirements, and I talked about this, that expensive, complex, iron, one-size-fits-all ADC, that might not be the answer anymore. Increasingly, the ADCs are being deployed to efficiently and cost-effectively solve more specific challenges. So, as I mentioned, sometimes you want that scalable hardware with strong price performance. Deploy that at the edge to terminate connections, offload compute-intensive functions such as SSL and other functions like that. But you may use that for that, and that's very well adapted for that particular use case. And then perhaps you want some other options to deploy closer to the applications. That's simple, cost-effective, agile, software-based solutions that you deploy closer to the application to provide service-specific traffic management functions. And so you may want to be looking for alternatives because you need something that's a little bit more adaptable or allows you to pay for what you need and place that where you need it to better serve the needs of your applications. So to summarize that, and also to summarize the conversations that we've been having out there with partners, with customers, when is the time right for alternatives, or what might be a customer profile that you might fit in to where now is the time to perhaps look at an alternative. There's the obvious stuff, end of sale. So, if you have F5 load balancers that you've been using, but they've gone end of sale or approaching end of sale or end of support, and it's a natural break, a natural time to consider your alternatives. This is a perfect time to evaluate Array Network solutions. A refresh cycle. So, the products themselves may not be end of sale, may not be end of support, but your internal technology cycle, whether that's a 3-year cycle, a 4-year cycle, you're approaching or within a year of that refresh cycle. Again, things have changed significantly in the last 4 years. It may be time to take a look at where you're going in the future and what are the options available to you and what's the best fit for where you're going. Another obvious one, system capacity. If you happen to be bumping up against the edge of the capacity of a particular appliance, you're thinking about adding another appliance or another solution in order to handle additional capacity. Maybe using a different solution is the right answer for you. Greenfield is another great opportunity to look at new technologies. A lot of times, maybe something isn't the best fit for you, but it's running an existing application, and perhaps that's best left alone, even though you're not totally satisfied with certain things or you may be overpaying. Greenfield environments, new projects present a terrific opportunity to look at new solutions, to pick the right solution this time around. Limited budget, so again, this goes back to maybe you need to have this product, whether it's an existing application that you need to refresh, or you need more capacity, or it's a new product, a new project. but budget's a consideration. As I mentioned earlier, you want to be able to spend more of your budget on the things that are going to actually make you money, and paring back the cost of this particular line item makes a lot of sense for you. And then finally, to reinforce the point that I made earlier, changing needs. Our new deployment model is causing you to reevaluate your choices with respect to ADCs. So I would say that, perhaps you fit into one of these. Maybe that's why you're on today's call. If that's the case, then, encourage you to follow up with us and see if Array might be right for you. So with that out of the way, before we move on and actually look at the actual demo, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the company and then also give you a little bit of background on the product itself, and then turn you loose to take a look at the demo itself. So Array Networks, actually now we've been around for just over 15 years. So we were founded in 2000, so at this point, meeting enterprise class app delivery requirements for over 15 years. We're headquartered here, I should say, in Milpitas, California, so out of Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area, with over 250 employees, and that's worldwide employees. We have a presence, strong presence. Basically, we have 4 markets, 4 or 5 markets that we have very strong presence in: North America and Europe, our China operations, our Japan operations, and our India operations. Each of those has a very robust team and very robust presence and sales for Array Networks. Our market, we're not just a load balancer company. That's where things started out, but today, many of these functions, not just traditional load balancer, application delivery controller functions, today many other networking and security functions are being rolled into this product category, this market category of application delivery networking. And if you look at our products, you'll be able to see that. We have our ADCs, we have our secure access gateway, our SSL VPN, we have WAN optimization controllers, web application firewalls, and uniquely we have a product we call our Array virtualized appliance, and this is a hardware appliance. It's been virtualized, and on that appliance you can run any of the functions, the virtual editions of any of the functions that you see here, whether that be ADC, SSL, WAF, WAF, you can run those on our AVX appliance, and I'll get into that a little bit more later, but it's something that's very unique to Array Networks. In terms of some of the segments we serve, traditionally we've served enterprise and public sector organizations for a long time. One of the things that's really coming on strong now, obviously with the cloud, we have a lot more customers that fall into that infrastructure as a service category and also that software as a service category. So we're now selling our products to service providers who are then able to turn that into cloud-based infrastructure services and sell that on demand to their customers. SoftLayer is a perfect example of that. They're one of our biggest infrastructure as a service customers, and all of their load balancing services are based on Array Networks products and technologies. Very strong technology portfolio, as opposed to some vendors that use a lot of open source stuff and just cobble that together and then call that a product. Many of the things that we do and many of the things we're able to do are driven by our technology and our patent portfolio. And having been around for well over 15 years, we have a strong, worldwide proven customer base, over 5,000 customers around the world at this point in time. This is a little bit of an eye chart here, but begins to give you a little bit of an idea of some of the vertical focus areas. I talked about infrastructure as a service and software as a service, the banking, financial services, healthcare, education, government, e-commerce. There's more, but just a sampling here. You can see some of the customers in each of these categories. Again, just a sampling, and really applications drive everything. So whether that be Microsoft, whether that be the SAPs, the Oracles, or specific applications for a given industry like Blackboard and Moodle and Banner and things like that for education, or just some of the kind of more general web applications or supporting of web applications, the Apache and things like that. So we have a broad portfolio of application support, a lot of those deployment guides, templates, things like that allow you to support these applications very quickly. And then of course the alliances that allow us to work well with all the other components and infrastructure and elements that are in your data center. Looking at the product itself, this slide is going to give you a bit of a taste for the hardware, and then the next one we'll talk a little bit about software. There's a couple of unique things about Array. Our products go all the way from the entry level all the way up through the very high end. So unlike some ADC vendors that maybe cap out at a certain point, as you grow, we can grow with you. The other unique thing about that is that we don't use, let's say, a different operating system for entry-level products and then have something completely different running our high-end products. It's the same OS running across the entire product spectrum. So as you grow, the config stays the same. You can pull one box out, put another box in, load the config, and you've now bought yourself headroom to support your next 2 to 3 years of growth with your particular application. A broad range of products, very scalable, very cost-effective. I'll get into that a little bit later, but also very user-friendly in the fact that they're all interchangeable. That said, many customers now are looking at software as well. How flexible, how agile can you be? And so our VAPV for our application delivery controller, or VXAG, for instance, for our SSL VPN, or as for any of the other products as well, we've designed these things to be very flexible. So if you look at, it doesn't matter whether you're doing something like, just have a virtualized environment, or you're building your own private cloud, the VAPV can run on any of those hypervisors, whatever you might have chosen for your private cloud or for your virtualized data center, VMware, KVM, Hyper-V, you name it. The other thing is increasingly people are wanting to use public clouds. Maybe they're even deploying everything in the public cloud, but oftentimes they're creating a hybrid environment where the private cloud talks to the public cloud, and they want to be able to run a consistent architecture and architect their applications the same way. The APV, the VAPV, VXAG, they're available in these public cloud platforms as well. I mentioned that they're available in SoftLayer, that everything that SoftLayer runs is run by the Array product, but also you can buy it as a branded Array product in the AWS market, the Azure, VMware, vCloud Air, any of these public cloud environments, the Array product is available and can run in those environments. And then finally, we're also recognizing that there's a new breed of platforms out there. I talked a little bit about Array's AVX platform, our own hardware that's virtualized that you can run any of our virtualized appliances on. But there are other things like Nutanix, other hyper-converged infrastructure, other platforms where you may want to run some of these services. And our VAPV, this is our roadmap to be able to make this available on as many platforms as possible. Nutanix is the first one. We're a Nutanix-ready certified partner, and our VAPV is validated to run directly as a workload on the hyper-converged infrastructure. And the final point to make on this with respect to our software products is it's not enough to be available on a private cloud, a hypervisor, public cloud, or here, there. The real trick or the real key to cloud comes in automation and orchestration. And so, we work with things like the VMware, the vCenter, the Microsoft System Center, OpenStack Neutron, the Cisco APIC and ACI, and we also have our own RESTful API and XML RPC APIs that can be integrated into virtually any cloud management platform. So you can bring this VAPV under the purview of a cloud management system, and you can begin to create workflows to where traffic loads increase, more compute and a load balancer is spun up to meet that requirement, or another customer signs up, you can spin up, storage, compute, and a load balancer automatically and get them provision those services in, almost on demand. So really trying to address everything what the customers are looking for in this new software-centric and virtualized environment. And one of the points that I make as well is if you are looking to replace something, you want to make sure that you're replacing it with something that is actually capable of replacing it, that meets those requirements, has the same functions, and is going to be able to support what you do. So I took a look at Gartner and took a look at what are some of the features that are commonly deployed by customers that are using application delivery controllers, and you get the obvious. It's a load balancer. SSL offload is almost almost every product we sell comes with some of that. But you look at the acceleration, the application templates, the GSLB, connection multiplexing, web app firewall, the customized scripting, all these things, and you go down that list of what the customers are using. We do all these things. We rarely find a situation where there's something that the F5 is being used for that we can't also meet that requirement. And so, looking at these feature sets, these capabilities that we bring to the table, it's giving you those benefits, the always-on experience, better server efficiency, better application performance, streamlining your deployment of applications, multi-site redundancy, more performance, security, control, visibility, migration to next generation standards, all of the above, we can meet those requirements. And industry-leading price performance. So, hopefully this chart makes a little bit of sense, but it really gets to the heart of, we can deliver a lot more performance. I've used SSL here as an example of that because it's a function and an attribute that a lot of people use. But we deliver superior performance across a number of metrics. But just taking a look at the SSL, you can see that in orange there with Array. Even at the, and I've used entry, mid, and large. You'll see that generally you're getting a lot more. In this case, 2048-bit SSL transactions per second. You're getting a lot more of those, and you're generally getting those at about half the price. And this is something that holds true across a lot of the functions on the product. So get more, have a simpler product, pay a lot less for it, and just some of the reasons why it's becoming an attractive alternative to F5 for a lot of potential customers. And so with that, I am going to stop my sharing, and I am going to hand the ball over to Ed and make him the presenter, and allow him to spend a little bit of time and walk through the actual product itself, and let you take a look and show some of the areas where we think we have a more simpler and much more streamlined alternative versus F5. Ed?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So what I want to do here is walk you through our ADC. I'm going to point out some of the features that we have. I'm also going to make some comparisons to F5 just so you can kind of understand how we differentiate between F5 and also some other competitors. What I'll do is I'm going to take you through kind of the base configuration. Then we're going to focus in on SLB, server load balancing, and SSL offloading. I will touch on some of the other functions as well. So just to start, a lot of customers, what they're going to ask us is, visually, what can we see from your device? It's actually one of the big questions that we have today. So I'll show you here that we give each user of the appliance the ability to manage their own dashboard. So each user that's assigned a username and password on the device could come in here. They can add a graph, okay, basically take a look at what they want to see, okay, and this can be real time. They can also adjust it by date, okay, and time. From that, they could take these reports. They could export them out to a picture. Maybe they need to put a report together for a boss, or maybe they just want some statistical information. They can put it into like an Excel spreadsheet. So I just wanted to kind of start with that because that is one of the big questions that always comes up. From there, what I'm going to do is walk you down through the left-hand column. We're really going to focus in on the SLB, but I do want to mention some other things here. So under system, what we really want to focus in here is the access control. Things like Paul had mentioned before, we support XML RPC, we support RESTful API. There's just some functions that will allow from an external device to actually get into the APV, pull information, and then actually have a response to that. So you could actually do some proactive response configuration. So they're the APIs that we were speaking of. In addition, we have our web wall. That's going to be our firewall for our appliance. Now, it does not do deep packet inspection, but if you were to put an interface out on the LAN, you could enable web wall on a specific port or bond and then do some firewall functionality on that as well. Stepping down into network, I want to talk a little bit about interfaces. The instance I'm showing you right now has 4 ports. Okay, these ports can be bonded together to increase your throughput. We can also support VLAN and also MNet. MNet is a way to actually add another subnet to the device if you do not support VLANs in your infrastructure. And you want to actually put a VIP on a different subnet, you could actually add an MNet interface. But this right here, we're showing 4 ports. With our largest models, we have up to 16 10-gig ports. The next thing I'm going to go down is into routing. Under routing, the thing I just wanted to point out was eRoute. So with eRoute, it gives you the ability to route out to specific gateways based off of a source or destination. We also have auto-created eRoute. So if you're going to be using our link load balancing, we can create an eRoute based off of the best path. Under NAT, we do support NATing. We also can support port forwarding. So in the case that you are putting some of these ports or interfaces out on the WAN, you may want to do NATing or port forwarding. We do give you that capability as well. For high availability, we can support up to 32 units in an HA configuration. We do support active-active and active-passive. So you can specify certain virtual services to be active on one unit and another set to be active on a separate unit. And then if one unit were to fail, all units, the one unit would handle both groups of virtual IPs. And we do also have session state failover. So that way the connection session information is replicated to all the devices real time. So that way if one unit does fail, all the connections would be picked up on the other unit without users being disconnected. And then we have certain health checks you can do, not just only on up-down, but you could do a health check on CPU usage, memory usage, memory spike. You could do it even you know, on a gateway that might be down a few hops away. So we do support that as well. So moving into server load balancing, this is where we're going to spend most of our time. And what I really want to emphasize is the simplicity of the configuration. So when we look at something like F5, you really get involved in iRules and IAPs. And even if you do an IAP and you have that template and you get through it, in the end, you're still left with an iRule to manage. Our device is unique where everything's hard-coded. So everything you'll need to do is drop-down based. Okay, we're going to start with SSL. So you can kind of see how how we would actually go ahead and set up a virtual service or load balance and do SSL offloading. So under SSL, you'll see we have our virtual host, and then we have our real host. Our virtual host is for SSL offloading, and our real host is if you're going to do back-to-back SSL. So for this demonstration, we'll concentrate on the virtual host. You'll see that I have a virtual host added here, but just to show you how you would add that, you'd click on Add. You'd give it a name, you can enable it, and then you would create it. Once you create it, you'd come back to this screen here where you could actually click inside. Okay? You could generate a CSR from this, or you can import a certificate through the screen here. One thing that's unique now with our latest firmware release is that we support SNI. So if you have multiple domains, you can have multiple domains in one associated with one VIP. So that way, what we look at the qualified domain name, we assign the correct certificate. Okay? So this is going to help with cutting down those IP addresses that you have to delegate for a specific virtual service. And then in conjunction with that, you could use our policy, our QoS hosting policy, which will say, okay, if you come in with this domain name, match this certificate, and then also pass through to these real services. So it's a really nice way to simplify the configuration and really consolidate. Under advanced options, this is where you're going to actually be able to select your SSL protocol. You'll see here I have TLS 1.2 selected. We also support TLS 1.0 and SSL v3. You'll see under my cipher suite, currently in this certificate, I only have one cipher suite, but you'll see it's ECC, and it's also using perfect port secrecy. But if I back out here a little bit, I can bring you into this test one where I actually show a full range. So you'll see here a full range of the TLS 1.2 cipher suites that we can support. And then you can enable and disable certain cipher suites and also prioritize which ones are going to be used first. So once you input your certificate or your certificates, you can come up to virtual services. And you'll see I have a number set up, but again, I'm just going to take you through configuring a new one. So if we were to hit add, we could then drop down to the virtual service type. And today what we'll focus in on is SSL offloading, which would be HTTPS, but you'll see there's a number of others that you could choose from. Again, these are all hard-coded instructions, so it's not script-based, so it is also less CPU intensive. So if I click on HTTPS, I can give it a virtual service name. I can specify the IP address, IPv4 or v6, and one thing to mention is that we are full v6 capable. We also can NAT v6 from v4 to v6 and from v6 to v4. Specify the port, specify max connections if you desire, and then you can also select which virtual certificate you're going to use, and that was created from our last step. Once you have all that information populated, it'll actually create it, and it will bring it down into this screen. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on one that I've already had created. This one is actually for Citrix, and I can just show you some of the ease of configuration for some of the general things that you'd be doing. So if we click under HTTP settings and under HTTP redirect, if you wanted to redirect all HTTP to HTTPS, you could simply enable and save. Instead of creating an I rule to do that, it's a checkbox essentially. In addition, we'll use Citrix, for example. We know that if you go to citrix.domain.com, a user would also have to end that with /citrix/storeweb. So instead of making that redirection on each backend server, we can do it in one place, and that's on our application delivery controller here. You click Add. You give it a policy name, a priority. You type the original host, which could be the IP address or the fully qualified domain name. The original path, which might be just /, the protocol, the host, which it may be the same or may be something different, and then you would type in the new path, and you create that. Once you create that, it'll actually put this policy in, and now every time a end user or a client goes to the VIP, they'll automatically be redirected to the virtual path. So in addition to the simplicity of doing redirects and forcing people to use HTTPS, if there is a function or feature that isn't available on the drop-down here, we have our ePolicy engine. Our ePolicy is based off TCL scripting, so it's much like F5. So if you're familiar with F5 scripting, you can be familiar with ours. So anything that is not readily available, we could actually script in. So I would say about 90 to 95% of what F5 does, we can do without our ePolicy. We can do it simply through the hard-coded instruction. But for that other percentage, we could do that through ePolicy. So once the virtual service is created, we can drop down to Real Services. Under Real Services, you would add, much like what you did with virtual services. In this case, we would choose HTTP because we're going to do offloading. But you'll see there are many other selections here. So when I choose HTTP, I can type in the real service IP, the port on the real server, and then I can select the health check. So the health check, in many cases, some of the lower end products out there, they might do TCP or ICMP. One thing that we can do is HTTP. Not only can we check to make sure the service is up so that it's responding on maybe port 80, but we can also check against a specific page. So you may want to check against a specific page within the storefront server and make sure that responds correctly. And if it does, then we'll make this server active. But if it does not respond, we'll take it out of the group or make it inactive. So that's a nice feature to do a layer 7 health check. Okay. So once you create all your real services, then we're going to put them in a group. Okay, so basically we're going to say all these real services work together, and we're going to put them in a group, okay? And we're going to define the method of that group. And this is what's really neat, because again, with iRules and F5, it's going to become very complex, especially if you're not familiar with F5, to do something like an iCookie, insert cookie. Now, from a simple load balancing, you have round robin and least connections. You might want to do persistent IP. But for something like insert cookie, we make it very simple. You can click on insert cookie, give it a name. You can specify the number of active real services if you want to limit it. Give it a cookie name. You can enable the path attribute, and then choose what type of load balance after we insert that cookie. So it might be round robin or least connections. Once you do that, we have this real service group, and then you can add your real services to that. So now we have a group method of insert cookie, and here's the real servers that are assigned to that group. So we make it very simple. Now we talked about health checks on the real services. We can also define health checks on the group itself. The nice thing about that is if you have a database server and your application servers have to talk to the database server and the database server is down, it really is no good for your application servers to be online if your database server is offline. So we can do a health check on that database server and then tell the real service group that if the database server is down, redirect all your users to a under maintenance or site currently offline page, rather than them just getting a timeout or an error. So that's a nice feature as well. So once we have our virtual services and our real service group defined, we can then go under policies and we can link them together. So what linking them together is going to do, it's going to basically say that I've got a insert cookie group, and now my policy type is going to be insert cookie. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to link the virtual service. So if the virtual service was, say, ECW HTTP or HTTPS, whatever it might be, I'm going to link that with ECW insert cookie, and then I'm going to give it a precedent, and I can add that in. So once I've done that, my setup is complete. Now I'm actually load balancing. Okay. Now, in the case that maybe you have a storefront server, and you have a storefront server, but you want to proxy that. So you want to do a true reverse proxy from the outside to the inside. You could create a static policy and just specify that the VIP is set to match up with a specific real service or real server, which would be your storefront. So that's another way of handling this. So that being said, some of the other features with our device is we do support UCC, which I mentioned, SNI. We do support HTTP2. So if you have a web server that supports HTTP2, we can also support that. But if you have a web server that may not support HTTP2, you can enable HTTP2 on our APD and basically do HTTP2 offloading. So our APD can be designed to handle multiple requests and multiple responses, even though the backend real service is not. You can actually increase performance. We also can do patching and compression. We also support WebSocket. And we talked about RESTful API and XML-RPC. So there are a lot of the new features of our product here. Now, if we go down to the monitoring center, if you didn't set up your graphs, you could come down to the monitoring center, and we have some predefined graphs. You can specify the SLB virtual service, the real services, the group, or the global statistics. You'll see under real services, I have two that are red. That's actually saying that they're failing the health check right now. Okay, so you can be alerted to that. And then if you were to use our XML-RPC or maybe RESTful API, you could make calls into the APV, pull that information out, or you could send the information over to a syslog server using our remote syslog server host, or even email alerting to let you know when there are issues. So outside of SLB, we also do support global server load balancing. Again, very simple to configure. Global server load balancing is nice if you have multiple data centers. So a lot of times customers will say, well, we have servers at location A, we have a failover site at location B, and they're replicating, so we're good to go. Well, the real issue is, well, how are you going to get the client or the end user from A to B? And you would do that through global server load balancing. So one of the things we do really well is handle that automation for you. So you can simply specify your A records, specify your services and pools, which are basically the IP addresses that are going to be assigned to that host name that I showed you above, and then the policies, which are going to define how the global server load balancing is supposed to respond. You have passive, like an active site, a primary site, and a failover site. You could say that everything goes to the primary site, and if a health check fails, go to the backup site. Or you might want to do it region-based, and we do support that as well. So you could say that if you are on the West Coast data center and your internet providers out there, go that direction. But if you are on the East Coast, go to an East Coast data center. So we can support that as well. And that's all done through our health checks and our policies. And lastly, we do support link load balancing. So link load balancing in combination with the global server load balancing is unique because what you can do is bond multiple interfaces together. We would be the startup authority for your DNS. So we could automatically update those A records so that when traffic comes in, we'll automatically resolve the host name to the correct IP address. The last thing I want to review is just system logs, just to give you an idea of what we capture and what we can do. So we have our syslog host. It's a local syslog host. It'll hold up to 40,000 lines of information. But then we also have a remote syslog host. It's going to allow you to offload the syslog to a remote server. That way you can keep your historical information. If you're using something like Splunk, you could capture it in a nice dashboard. We also support email alerts, and we also support SNMP and SNMP v3. So that being said, that pretty much wraps up what I want to demonstrate. The other thing I just want to show you for those who may want to go further into this, we can set up evaluations, we can do a WebEx, but if you go down that route, all the information regarding our product is in the web UI, so you can get the user manual, the application guide, the CLI handbook, and RESTful API document. So it's just, if you ever do download a product for evaluation, know that number one, you have the support of our team here, but number two, all the documents are also provided up in here. And then on our website, there's a lot of deployment guides that will assist you with deploying things like Exchange and Link and SharePoint. So I'm going to hand it off to Paul, and that should wrap up my demonstration.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed. That was awesome. All right, give me just a quick second here, and I will take control back. And I will share my screen, and we should be back in business. So one of the things here, awesome demo. I have a few more things I want to present, but I might go through them just a little bit quicker than usual because we are going to come up against the hour, and we do have a few questions here, and I want to make sure that we have time to get to those. So I'm going to touch on these. I might go a little bit quicker through the first three and then spend a bit more time on the Array virtualized appliance, which I think is a solution that's very unique to Array. One of the things I always like to highlight is Microsoft validated application delivery. It's just very common out there, and we have a lot of customers that are using these Microsoft applications, and it happens to be an area where we just have a lot of experience and a lot of solutions, a lot of documentation, and a lot of validation. So if you are running things, Exchange, SharePoint, Blink, Skype for Business, TMG, ADRMS, ADFS, any other Microsoft application, just know that we are validated to provide that availability, acceleration, and security for those applications. Another unique application, one of the things we're finding out there is with next generation firewalls, providing a lot of good, deep, application level security, but one of the issues is scalability. And so one of the things we did is working with Dell SonicWall, creating, testing, and validating a solution for load balancing of next generation firewalls, what we call a firewall sandwich. So something that you may run into scalability issues, especially in some situations where you're aggregating traffic from a lot of different. Let's say you have a hub and spoke, and then from that hub you're going out to the internet, but you want to be able to provide those next-gen firewall capabilities, but you have a lot of traffic that's coming through that centralized point before going out to the internet. This is a solution that's uniquely capable of helping to address that challenge. I talked a little bit before about the availability of the Array Network's VAPV on all kinds of different platforms, one of which being the Nutanix hyperconverged infrastructure. So this is another solution. It's a new solution, but a lot of our customers and partners are going down this road now of replacing the traditional tiered storage and server compute networking approach and moving to this simpler, more web-scale, hyper-converged infrastructure and Nutanix approach. And for those customers, a lot of them are looking for an even further level of convergence where some of the networking, application delivery networking, security functions are also converged into this same the hardware infrastructure, and then can be managed along with some of all the other software functions. So we are a Nutanix Partner Network member, a certified Elevate Build partner, Nutanix Ready certified for networking and security. And again, it doesn't matter if on these platforms you're looking at hypervisors, VMware or Hyper-V, or in the case of Nutanix, they have their own that they're calling AHV, Acropolis Hypervisor. Something that just like Array can help to save their customers and their clients a lot of money versus something like a VMware. This is another unique and interesting solution that we're highlighting a lot lately and is resonating with customers and with partners. And finally here, just touching on the Array virtualized appliance. So the point that I make with this is that there's no free lunch. If you look at something like the traditional hardware appliances, you're going to get a lot more performance, scalability. Those are the strong suits of those appliances, the proven, simple, reliable, scalable, high performance, price performance, things of that nature. What do you give up? Well, you give up a lot of that agility that you get with software, the portability, the on-demand, things of that nature. If you go with something like the virtual appliances, well, you get a lot more agility, a lot more flexibility. They're portable, they're on demand, they can be more cost effective, you can put them in different places. So agility is a strong suit for that. But we find a lot of customers that kind of want everything. They want to have all those attributes of cloud and virtualization, but they have mission critical applications, or they have customers that they've promised SLAs to, and they need to be able to have higher level of performance and also guaranteed performance. This is something where a solution like our AVX virtualized appliance comes into play. As I stated before, it's a hardware appliance, but it has been virtualized and runs a hypervisor. On that hypervisor, you can run any of the Array products. So I'll go over some of the attributes on the agility of cloud and virtualization. So you can have different size virtual machines, large, medium, small, entry level, so you can mix and match those as needed to support different workloads. You can support different network functions, so you can deploy our VAPV ADC, you can deploy our virtual SSL VPN, WAF, WAN op, and even different third-party networking and security functions can be run on this platform down the road to provide it with higher levels of performance. Like the cloud, we have pay-as-you-go capacity. You do not have to buy this appliance all at once. You can buy it in quarter capacity increments and buy more as you either add more customers or as the needs of your applications or new applications are added. And then also all of the orchestration, integration, and automation capabilities that I described earlier are available on this product so that you can bring the virtual appliances that are resident on this hardware appliance, you can bring those under the purview of whatever cloud management system you choose. So you're getting all the agility of cloud and virtualization. Now, on the other side of the coin, you're getting the performance of dedicated appliances. Why? Unlike other ADC vendors, what we've done here is we've done dedicated CPU, dedicated SSL, dedicated memory, dedicated interfaces per each virtual machine. And we've also dedicated resources for hypervisor management to eliminate contention between virtual machines. So for each and every virtual machine or each and every virtual function that's running on this appliance, you can get performance that's equivalent to a dedicated appliance, but you also know exactly what the specifications are for that particular networking or security virtual appliance. So with knowing that and knowing that it's guaranteed, you can now use this to run mission-critical applications or to support services for customers, but you can also bring to bear all those benefits of cloud and virtualization with the ability to automate, the ability to pay as you go, the ability to move things around and support different functions. So a very unique solution that Array brings to market, and wanted to make sure I spent a little bit of extra time on this one. And finally, a lot of this is reinforcement of some of the things that Ed showed in his demo and things that I talked about earlier. But the top 5 reasons that customers are choosing Array. We have a particular strength on layer 7 and SSL performance and capabilities. So, whether you're talking about the virtual appliances that are tuned for maximum performance or physical appliances that maintain performance, and this is critical, even when you start to enable some of those more advanced features that you saw on the left-hand side of the product console there, you can go ahead and add and layer those capabilities without impacting performance. Simplified management, as Ed talked about earlier, you don't have to have either professional services or a lot of internal expertise in order to do some, to meet your requirements or to do some very interesting things on the product. A lot of, or most I should say, of our capabilities are hard-coded on the product, so it's simply point and click or a CLI. We don't need to get into the business of doing very complex scripting that can be expensive, time-consuming, but can also chew up a lot of performance and resources on the product itself. Reduced vulnerability, I haven't talked about this yet, but I talked about our patents and our technology portfolio, and we don't use OpenSSL. We architected our own SSL implementation. We did that, number one, to get better performance, but in so doing, we really closed a lot of the loopholes and a lot of the things that are now, Heartbleed, Shellshock, Ghost, Bash, a lot of these things that you've been hearing over the last 18 months that have affected OpenSSL. None of our customers have had to deal with any of that. There's been no remediation, no patching, no nothing. We simply haven't been vulnerable to that. It's not to say that it's 100%, but we believe that our product and our implementations are much less vulnerable and provide a higher level of security versus the competition. Scalable and future-proof, as I talked about, not just scalable from an entry-level to a high-end hardware appliance, but also scalable and future-proof with respect to the cloud and virtual solutions that we have, the number of places that we can run, the number of products we have that have been virtualized, our integrations with the orchestration and automation. So it doesn't matter what dimension you look at it, we're providing you with a scalable and a future-proof product line. And finally, superior price and value. Not only do we do all these things, but we can provide it generally at half the cost of comparable competing solutions. And to tie everything back, I'm going to go full circle and go back to that example that I gave earlier regarding the customer that was deploying that SaaS application and was looking at a price tag of about $250,000, $500,000 from F5, and we were able to bring that more in line with the other elements in the overall solution, meeting the requirement for less than half the price of the F5, in this case around $200,000. And now moving on to the actual offer itself. So purchase a comparable Array ADC for half what you would pay F5. Now, this gets into a tricky business. We started out with this promotion, and a customer might have a quote or a partner might have a quote, and this was the price from F5, and then we said, okay, well, we're going to be half that price. And then they'd use that and play the game and go back to F5, and then they'd use that to F5 would lower their price. Okay, we got it. So what this is it's half the price that you would pay from whatever final quote you get from F5. So you play the game, they lower their price, come back to us for half that price. Whatever that final price turns out to be, if we can meet your requirements, provide you with the product that you like that's going to meet those requirements, we can solve your problems for half what you would be paying F5. A little bit of details on that, the F5 replacement program process. Evaluate an Array ADC, provide a final quote from F5, and will be 50% less expensive than your final quote from F5 for an equivalent solution. Support and professional services are available at a 30% discount. And the offer is valid for proof of concept starting prior to September 30th of this year. Right now, what you see here as described is North America only. We do have the product available in other regions. It's just been modified a little bit to take into account certain distribution and pricing attributes of those regions. So if you are from another region, I think I might have seen a few of you on the webinar from another region, please reach out to us. We do have the program available, only modified just slightly. And as Ed was talking about, walking you through that, we do have the VAPV, the Virtual Application Delivery Controller, available for you to try it out yourself, to download it, get your hands on that technology, and start to get comfortable with it. Simply go to our website. You're going to see a big Try It Now button on there. Click that. You go to our download center, and you can download not just the load balancer, but any of our products if you wish to begin to get familiar with it. And with that, let me check and see here and go to our Q&A and our chat window, and we'll try to field this for those of you that have the time to stay on the call for a few more minutes. All right, so first, just a couple of quick housekeeping questions that I got here that I generally get. Will today's presentation or recording be made available? Yes, so generally what we do is after the call, I do my kind of my housekeeping after the call, and everybody that either registered or attended the call gets a PDF version of the presentation you just saw. Within 2 days generally, or by Monday, we should have the video edited, and we post these to our Array YouTube site, Array TV. So for those of you that need this to either share with the team or share with management or things like that to perhaps have that discussion, we'll make these available to you. Ed, actually one more, is there an option to evaluate? Yes, perhaps the virtual appliance. I touched on that a few slides ago. Absolutely, just go to our website and click the Try It Now or the How to Try button. Ed, so here's a question actually on the AVX virtualized appliance that I talked about just a couple minutes ago. Can you tell me more about the AVX, the virtualized appliance, and how it might be set up with different networking functions in an enterprise environment?
Okay. So for the AVX, what you can do with that is you can load multiple APV instances on there. So in an enterprise, you can look at it from a multi-tenant standpoint or just a large enterprise organization that may have multiple departments. So rather than doing multiple physical 1U appliances, you could actually do multiple virtual appliances on a 2U unit. Okay, so what you're doing is you're shrinking that space, so less rack space, less power, less cooling, and then you can also allow different departments to manage each individual, maybe HA pair of load balancers that's assigned to them to use. So it is actually very unique for that. It's actually a very good way to break out your load balancing across departments and give ownership to different departments.
And this is slightly related here. We're a small to mid-sized company using Silver Peak for WAN-op and LFEEC for web load balancing. Can the APV or the AVX replace both of those appliances? So what we have our APV is going to do our server load balancing, and it'll also do some caching and compression. So if you're talking about web applications and load balancing that, you're definitely going to get a performance increase because we have the caching and compression. And then for our did we mention the VX? Can you repeat that question one more time? Yeah, it just says, because it looks like they're using Silver Peak for WAN-op, so they have the WAN-op.
Right, for WAN-op.
And it says LFEEC here, but I think it might be link load balancing. So it sounds like, can the Array APV or AVX replace those appliances?
Yeah, so none of them individually can replace. We do have our WAN-op, which is our Accelera. That's going to do our WAN optimization. Our APV is going to do the link load balancing. So the two together can do that. But if your WAN optimization is strictly for web type applications, it's possible that the APV could give you the caching and compression that you need. But if it's anything greater than that, you would combine both the Accelera and our APD products.
Got it. Question here. Can you talk a little bit more about working with Epic as a load balancer on the internal network as well as on the DMZ with a reverse proxy?
All right, repeat that one more time. What was the application? Epic?
Yeah, Epic.
So, as far as just in general application load balancing, with the full reverse proxy, what we do is you put the VIP on the external side, so that's going to sit behind the firewall. Or you could put it on the WAN. But what happens is when the client makes a connection to that VIP or that virtual IP, we then terminate that session. We open up another connection on the inside LAN. So it's a true reverse proxy. Okay. And then along with that, that's where we can do our SSL offloading. So we do have customers that are running Epic. We may even have some deployment guides online for that. If not, we could probably put something together. But, basically the client connects to that outside interface. We terminate that, and then we make a new connection to the internal side so that the client or the end user never has direct access to the real services, and it's actually making that true reverse proxy on the inside.
Got it. Is there an advanced option with more intelligence in regards to port activity to make sure that a port is not only available but properly responding?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that I mentioned were kind of it was the HTTP and I mentioned TCP, but we also have what's called TCP script. So you could actually create a script that'll actually do some more advanced monitoring or more advanced health check on those ports, and you could actually script that. And we have some some quick starts on how to do that as well. So absolutely.
And a couple of questions here that I think I can field, or maybe Ed on this one too. Sorry if I missed it, but is the equivalent of F5's GTM or Global Traffic Manager included or priced separately?
Okay, so from what I showed you, the only separate piece or module, I should say, or license is the global server load balancing. So our product includes everything that I showed in the demo except for global server. That's an additional license.
Got it. Let's see here. Would this same offer hold true for Citrix or another brand ADC? We have had this question come up before. We generally say yes for Citrix. The only time where we get into where the half price offer, we wouldn't be able to support that is if we start to look at solutions that are, less capable or less expensive, than Array. This simply doesn't make any sense. So, things like F5, Citrix, F5, absolutely, that is the program. Citrix, we're open to have that conversation for those of you who might happen to have that product. I think we're actually, let me double check here. Ed, you don't see any more, do you see any more questions?
No, I think we hit them.
Yeah, I think so too. Let me do one more quick check here. I had one last one here with respect to, is this deal only available, direct? Is it also available through the partner? Both ways. It is what it is. If you're working with a partner or you want to work with a partner, the offer holds. If you want to work with us directly, the offer holds. And with that, I think I have answered all the questions we had here. We did run a little bit over, so thank you to those of us who stayed on and got all the information today. So with that, Ed, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to walk us through the product and give us a little tour. Thought it was awesome. And thank everybody for joining us today. And with that, we'll conclude today's webinar. Thank you, everybody.